Marketing budgets have basically hit a brick wall.
Yeah, they really have.
And if you look at the Gartner 2025 CMO Spend Survey, budgets are completely frozen. They are sitting at exactly 7.7% of company revenue across the board.
Right, which is just a tough reality for everyone right now.
Exactly. But behind the scenes, agency teams are burning like thousands of billable hours every single month just trying to figure out why their analytics dashboards are lying to them. So, welcome to Fix the Funnel with GAFix.
It's great to be here.
This is episode number 19, and today's deep dive is tackling a massive operational bottleneck. We are talking about streamlining agency reporting through automated Google Analytics audits.
Yeah, because with those flat budgets, agencies are feeling the squeeze,
Right. If you can't grow the budget, the only way an agency can actually grow its margins is by finding workflow efficiencies. And that starts with the analytics.
It has to. I mean, it is the quiet crisis happening in almost every performance marketing agency right now. Teams are expected to deliver these increasingly sophisticated strategic insights, but they are operating on a completely fractured analytics foundation.
Think about your own workflow for a second. You spend weeks building a campaign, launching the creative, tweaking all the bids.
Absolutely, the fun stuff.
Right. Then you sit down to pull the monthly client report, and you realize the conversion numbers in Google Ads just do not match Google Analytics.
The worst feeling.
It really is. So instead of analyzing the strategy, you spend like 6 hours digging through spreadsheets, matching up columns, only to have the client question the final report anyway because they noticed a missing event.
Yeah, and suddenly the trust in that entire relationship just evaporates.
Completely gone.
And that loss of trust is what makes this so critical. The macroeconomic reality, that flat 7.7% budget environment we talked about, means agencies are under immense pressure to protect their margins.
You just can't afford the waste.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cannot afford to write off 10 hours of a senior analyst's time every month just to play detective with broken tracking codes. Time is your most precious resource, but the invisible data drain in most agencies is manual data validation.
Okay, let's unpack this. We know things break, right? But why are analysts spending so much time on it?
That's a good question.
Like trying to build a monthly client report with inconsistent UTMs and misfired events. It's like trying to bake a cake when half your ingredients are mislabeled. You think you're pouring in sugar, but it's salt. No wonder the final report leaves a bad taste in the client's mouth.
That is a perfect analogy, and honestly usually comes down to compounding technical debt across these really complex tech stacks.
Meaning what, exactly?
Well, an agency might inherit a client account that has years of layered configurations. So we are looking at incomplete event tracking because, say, a web developer updated a button's CSS class.
Oh, and that silently breaks the trigger in Tag Manager.
Exactly. We are seeing misfired events caused by modern single-page applications, too, like the ones built on React or Angular.
Wait, those are the sites where the URL changes, but the page doesn't actually reload, right?
You got it. If your tracking isn't specifically configured to listen for those history state changes, your events either don't fire at all or they fire twice.
Oh man, the dreaded double fire, which means your conversion data is immediately doubled.
Yep.
Making you look like an absolute hero for about 5 minutes until the client realizes the actual sales revenue doesn't match the reported leads at all.
Precisely. And then you have the classic scenario, which is inconsistent UTM usage.
UTM entropy.
Yes, in large distributed teams, UTM entropy is almost inevitable. You have an email team using one naming convention, the social team using another.
And the ad platform is silently stripping parameters anyway because of privacy updates.
Right. These might sound like isolated technical gaps, but when you multiply them across like 50 client accounts, they destroy confidence.
What's wild is that the underlying marketing strategy could be brilliant. I mean, the creative could be stunning.
It often is.
But the agency looks incompetent because of a plumbing issue. Analysts are forced to spend their time proving the data is real instead of actually telling the client what the data means.
What's fascinating here is that we often treat data collection as a set-it-and-forget-it's task. We assume that because the tracking worked during the onboarding phase 6 months ago, it still works today.
Right. But the internet doesn't work like that.
Not at all. A website is a living, breathing organism. Plugins get updated. Content management systems roll out patches. Other marketing vendors inject their own pixels.
So the environment is constantly shifting.
Exactly, which means the tracking foundation is constantly degrading.
I'll play devil's advocate for a second, though. Most advanced agencies already have incredibly strict standard operating procedures.
Sure, yeah.
They lock down publish rights in Tag Manager. They use staging environments. If you restrict access and nobody on the marketing team is actively touching the tracking codes, why do you need to continuously audit the setup every single month?
I hear that pushback a lot.
Right. Isn't a standard end-of-month review of the traffic dashboards enough?
Well, no, because looking at a dashboard traffic line only tells you what the system recorded. It doesn't tell you if the system recorded it correctly.
Ah, okay.
That is auditing the outputs. What we are talking about here is auditing the inputs. Even if you lock down Tag Manager, you cannot control external variables.
Like what kind of variables?
Well, a client's IT team might push a security update that alters the data layer structure. Or a new consent management platform update might suddenly block all analytics cookies entirely unless they are explicitly accepted.
Oh, wow. Which would skew your baseline traffic overnight.
Completely. So if you only look at the outputs at the end of the month, you are trying to diagnose a problem weeks after the damage is already done.
I see. You're verifying the integrity of the machinery that gathers the numbers before you ever try to read the numbers themselves.
Exactly. A proper audit acts as a foundational checkpoint. It ensures that every single conversion parameter, every custom dimension, and every UTM tag is perfectly aligned with the campaign goals before the data is ever processed.
You're confirming that the system is capturing reality.
Right.
So what does this all mean for the analyst who sits down on a Monday morning tasked with actually doing this? Conceptually, validating inputs makes total sense.
Yeah, but practically, it's daunting.
Very. How do you map out a structured process for clean data without just blindly clicking around a GA4 property, hoping to spot an error?
You need a blueprint. A structured manual audit functions across 4 distinct pillars.
Okay, let's hear them.
Step 1 is a deep review of the GA4 property setup. And this goes far beyond just checking if the tracking ID is on the page. You have to verify the data stream configurations.
Like cross-domain tracking rules.
Exactly. Are those explicitly defined? Because if a user clicks from the client's main website to a third-party checkout portal and the linker parameter isn't being passed in the URL,
GA4 drops the session and starts a new one.
Yep. Suddenly, all your organic and paid conversions are attributed to direct or referral traffic.
Which is an absolute nightmare when you're trying to prove ROI on a paid ad campaign, but all the credit is going to a payment gateway referral.
It ruins your attribution completely.
And you also have to look closely at silent data filters during this step, right?
You do. Data filters in GA4 are incredibly powerful, but they're also very blunt instruments.
Meaning they can do a lot of damage by accident?
Oh, yeah. An improperly configured internal IP exclusion filter might accidentally catch a massive subnet of remote workers or VPN users.
Just silently dropping legitimate traffic before it ever reaches your reports.
Right. And because filters alter the data permanently upon collection, you cannot go back and recover what was lost.
Yikes. Okay, so checking the property configuration is one thing, but the real chaos usually lives in a tag manager. I mean, you can have the perfect GA4 setup, but if you have legacy tags misfiring, it's all for nothing.
Which brings us to step 2, validating tags and triggers. This requires going into the tag manager container and examining the firing rules. You are actively hunting for conflicts.
Like what?
For example, if you have a legacy Universal Analytics tag that is still firing alongside a new GA4 tag, they might be competing for the same data layer variables.
Well, that makes sense.
Or you might find outdated tags from a vendor the client fired 2 years ago, which are now just slowing down page load times and creating script errors.
And I imagine you also have to look at the trigger conditions themselves. A tag is only as smart as the rule telling it to fire.
That is exactly the problem. If a form submission trigger is based solely on a button click, rather than a successful form submission event in the data layer,
Your tag will fire every time a user clicks submit.
Yep. Even if they leave a required field blank and get an error message, GA4 records a conversion. You are literally optimizing your campaigns based on failed attempts.
Wow, that is a critical distinction. Optimizing for a button click versus a completed database entry changes the entire trajectory of an ad campaign.
It changes everything.
Which naturally leads into step 3, I assume, examining events and conversions.
Yes, because GA4 operates on a strictly event-based model, which makes naming conventions absolutely paramount. You have to review the list of key events and confirm they align perfectly with the schema.
Because event names are case-sensitive now, right?
Highly case-sensitive. If your iOS app developer sends an event called generate-led with a capital G, and your web developer sends generate-led with a lowercase g, GA4 treats those as two completely different events.
So your data is instantly fragmented,
Instantly.
which means you have to aggregate them manually in your reports, which adds another hour of spreadsheet formatting.
And you still have to verify the custom parameters attached to those events. Is the purchase event actually passing the transaction ID and the correct currency code?
Let me guess, if the currency parameter drops.
GA4 won't calculate the revenue properly. It just fails. So the audit requires you to meticulously map the expected parameters against what is actually arriving in the system.
Okay, and then we arrive at step 4. Checking UTM parameters and source tracking.
The messy human element.
Yeah, let me ask you, the listener, directly. Have you ever tried to make sense of cross-channel traffic data where every single social post has a completely different UTM format?
It's painful.
One agency uses UpSource FB, an in-house team uses Facebook spelled out, and a third-party affiliate uses Facebook.com. It creates a fragmented, unreadable mess in your acquisition reports.
UTM degradation is one of the hardest things to control because it relies entirely on human discipline across different teams.
Which is inherently flawed.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, standardizing this process isn't just a one-time cleanup task. You can't just fix the UTMs in a spreadsheet once and declare victory.
Because they'll just break it again tomorrow.
Exactly. This validation process has to be integrated into the regular campaign deployment workflow. It is the only way to catch formatting issues early and prevent downstream rework.
But wait, I feel like we have a massive logical contradiction staring us right in the face here.
Oh,
Yeah.
How so?
Well, we started this deep dive by establishing that agencies are strapped for time. The 7.7% budget cap means analysts are already stretched to their absolute limits managing multiple accounts.
True.
So if teams are maxed out just trying to keep campaigns running, how on earth can they afford to spend hours running these 4 meticulous, highly technical manual audit steps for every single client every single month?
Yeah, it is the ultimate operational catch-22. You desperately need clean data to save time on back-end reporting, but getting that clean data requires a massive upfront investment of time.
Time they don't have.
Right. Human analysts simply cannot scale this level of forensic checking across dozens of properties without burning out.
And if manual auditing is unsustainable, the next logical step is automation.
Precisely. This bridges us directly into the technological shift happening in the space.
Because humans just aren't built for this kind of scale.
No, relying on human eyes to spot a missing underscore in a custom parameter across 100 different tags is incredibly inefficient. Automated auditing tools are changing this dynamic entirely, and GA-Fix is at the center of this transition.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does a tool like GA-Fix actually mechanize this process? Because we aren't just talking about a simple script that checks if a tracking code exists.
No, not at all. We are talking about deep architectural validation.
Okay, so mechanically, how does it work?
Mechanically, GA-Fix connects to the GA4 and Tag Manager environments via API using read-only access.
Ah, read-only. That's a big deal.
It is crucial because it maintains strict data security.
Yeah.
It literally cannot accidentally break or alter your live setup.
It's just looking.
Exactly. The algorithm scans the entire architecture of the property in minutes. It pulls the active Tag Manager container rules, maps them against the GA4 event schema, and cross-references the actual data flowing into the property.
So it's essentially reading the DNA of your tracking setup and highlighting all the mutations.
That's a great way to put it. It can instantaneously detect if a specific trigger firing rule in GTM conflicts with a custom dimension mapped in GA4.
Wow.
It flags missing parameters, identifies duplicate tags, and spots the exact cross-domain tracking breaks we discussed earlier. It accomplishes in minutes what would take a senior analytics engineer hours of mind-numbing manual code review to find.
What this really changes is an agency's dependency on developers.
Absolutely.
Because GA-Fix doesn't just surface a vague error code, right? It generates actionable recommendations detailing the precise misconfiguration.
Yes. You don't have to pull your lead technical engineer off a high-level data warehousing project just to figure out why a Shopify purchase event is dropping the transaction ID.
The platform isolates the breakage point for you.
It creates a highly efficient hybrid model. You are leveraging an automated algorithm to handle the deep, tedious technical parsing, which frees up the human analyst to focus on strategic oversight.
So the tool finds it, the human fixes it.
Exactly. Once the tool flags an issue, the analyst can implement the fix and immediately revalidate the data flow using the GA4 debug view or the Tag Manager preview mode.
And then what? Just run it again.
Yep. You then rerun the automated scan to confirm the architecture is pristine. It creates this continuous automated loop of accuracy.
Which brings us to the final destination of this data. Because an audit, whether it's manual or automated, is only valuable if the verified data actually reaches the client in a format they understand.
Right, the data doesn't just sit in the GA4 interface forever.
Nobody wants to log in there anyway.
Seriously. In a modern agency workflow, that data is immediately piped via API into visualization platforms, things like Looker Studio, Power BI, or Tableau, to create automated real-time client dashboards.
But connecting a beautiful, highly customized Tableau dashboard to unaudited GA4 data is like putting a Ferrari body on a broken lawnmower engine. I mean, the screen is rendering the graphics perfectly, it looks incredibly authoritative and expensive to the client, but under the hood, the files it's showing you are hopelessly broken. It's not going to get you anywhere.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Visualizers are incredibly dangerous when the inputs are flawed, precisely because they make the data look so official.
Right, it looks like math, so it must be true.
A client sees a beautifully designed bar chart in Power BI and implicitly trusts the numbers. Automating your reporting without automating your data validation just means you are delivering bad news to your clients at the speed of light.
And once a client spots a discrepancy on a real-time dashboard, that dashboard is dead to them.
Dead forever.
They will never trust it again. They will ask you to start exporting raw CSV files for them to check manually.
And nobody wants that. This raises an important question, though. How do you maintain trust and transparency when the dashboards update automatically, 24/7?
Because you can't be awake monitoring them all the time.
Right. The answer lies in continuous data validation cycles. By pairing automated platforms like GA with your visualization tools, you catch the corrupted hard drive before the high-definition monitor ever turns on.
So you're running the diagnostic scans in the background, continuously exporting audit summaries, and ensuring the architecture is sound before the data hits the visualizer.
Yes, exactly.
It eliminates the panic-inducing last-minute manual checks right before a client presentation.
It shifts an agency's entire posture, from defensive troubleshooting to proactive strategy. When you no longer have to second-guess the structural integrity of your metrics, you can finally focus entirely on the story those metrics are telling.
Let's bring all of this together. The core takeaway from today's deep dive is clear. The modern marketing environment is simply too complex, and budgets are just too tight to rely on manual data validation.
Just doesn't scale anymore.
It doesn't. Regular GA audits act as the ultimate defense against tracking errors, event misfires, and fragmented UTMs. But doing them by hand is a losing battle.
A very expensive losing battle.
By leveraging automated tools like GA agencies can instantly detect architectural configuration issues, standardize their tracking structures, and reclaim countless hours of lost billable time.
It comes back to that foundational truth. Your strategic insights, your campaign optimizations, and ultimately your agency's reputation are only ever as good as the verified data foundation beneath them. You cannot be a true strategic partner if you are constantly apologizing for broken plumbing.
Absolutely. And to you listening, think about how this applies to your own stack right now. We spend so much energy optimizing the ad creative, but how much energy are we spending optimizing the measurement architecture?
Usually not enough.
And that leaves us with something pretty provocative to ponder as we wrap up. If tools like GA can now automate the technical foundation of our data accuracy in minutes, reading the APIs and identifying the precise tracking flaws without human intervention, what happens when automation takes the next step?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Right. When we eventually reach a point where we trust our data inputs implicitly, without question, how much of our actual marketing strategy will we be comfortable handing over to the machines next? Something to think about the next time you hit refresh on that dashboard.